Alright, so for today, what I hope to achieve is, oh, yes, it's going to be another advanced tutorial, and we're going to be talking about animations, animation states. Theoretically, you don't really need this. You could make simple games even without it. Maybe it shouldn't really be an advanced tutorial, but it's not necessary to sort of look at this and either form your own conclusions or whatnot. But state machines is also it's a pretty cool topic. So what we will be grabbing today is tutorial 6, and we're going to be basing our code on that. So just copy it to your desktop. I'm going to rename it to, let's see, advanced tutorial. It's not going to have a number. What's my name scheme? Oh, huh. Flash develop's still open. I'm going to close it down. It locks. Cancel. It sometimes locks directories, so which is kind of a bummer. Advanced tutorial basic code. So I'm just going to copy this, and we're going to call ours advanced tutorial animation states. And this will there's probably going to be another one that'll deal with a lot more complex states and different state machines. Well, I don't know. We'll see. But there are a different number of ways to actually do animations. I'm gonna see if I can find one quickly. Should have had it prepared, but I didn't. So let's see. And let's see if we can find something interesting. So close submission. So this is one that was created by a GD 27. It's probably hard enough to hear me talk. You don't need other things playing on top of it. So if we play it in VA, this is one that has actually no animation states. Everything's relatively simple. Like the tanks just move. It's just a loop all over and over again, and the ships just kind of drop their bombs. There's no animation, or very, very simple. So you don't need something like a state machine. And there's probably a bunch of examples, especially puzzlers, that don't have tons and tons of animation. And you'll also have the other side, which have everything's kind of like a nuance. So let's see. I'm gonna find a couple more examples. Let's see. One more would be, and I probably show this one off. Once already, so, but I'm just going to bring it up because it's the only one that really comes to mind right now that that handles it a certain way. So this one's called Punk. There's a GD31. There you go. And so how this one really differs and is unique, and this is what I'm not going to be showing you today, but it's another possibility, is you can move and all your states are retained in addition to animating a particular piece. This one isn't too bad, especially for guns. I could probably show it to you today if I really wanted to, especially the way they implement it, but you can take a look at how they did it. It's not too bad, and you'd have a reference for it. So okay, that's the third, and let's see the last one of the more recent ones. I have to extract it though. Well, what to do? Extract. Oh, maybe there's another directory. Yeah, maybe I'll find another directory for it. No, I didn't. But I tried. That's the important part. Whoa. And it failed. It failed bad, 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 bad. And why did it fail? I don't know. Shouldn't have failed. Let me just delete that. Oh, how large is this thing? 17 megabytes. That doesn't really matter. I'll just paste it. Or I could probably just look inside of it. So, executable. I'll just run that. No, just run. Did it run? Oh, okay, good, great. And how this kind of works. Testing, testing. Okay, I'm still getting input. I don't know if my mic's close enough. I'm gonna move it a little bit. No, that wasn't good. And the radiance is my reading. It's hard to really test or see what's going on. I don't actually get my own feedback, so I have to just take a look at the bars. But this was an interesting one for the beauty and the complex animation. So it looks really, really good. But it still kind of inherits this, a form of state machine. Everything kind of needs to. So when you run and you jump and you've got idle states, and the character is like huge and large. Jump down at any point. Yeah. So it looks really fluid. Well, pretty. It's not too bad. There probably are some that look a little better. I believe I could find one more. So it's similar to this, except this one's a really, really old game that was actually done as a final project, if I can find it. Sometimes it's actually not too easy to find these. Okay, that one. There's GD. No, wasn't that one. That one. Let me just search for it. Hey.
I didn't know you were playing that.
So, that was Advanced Tutorial Animation States. So the last thing I was going to be showing was, I think there was one more I wanted to show off. Oh, did I find it in the end? No, I didn't. Anyway, I'll see if I can find it. Well, maybe I'm not going to even bother. But here's the thing. So we go into, so open up Flash Develop, open up Flash, and I'm going to open up both the project and the game. And so, what's involved? And to be honest, I'm not much of an animator, so I'm not going to do anything that really involves animation. But I will prove out the concept. And what that essentially means is, I'm going to change this animation to something that's static again. And you can put any amount of animation because it's all essentially the same. Maybe one. And I'm going to be using frame labels to sort of convey frame labels and text to convey our animation states. So let's get this in. Let's get this going. I'm gonna lock this layer, and I'm going to turn it invisible. Let's zoom in a little bit so I can actually see 400. And so here all I'm going to do is I'm going to add, not here, a text field. And the text field is going to be, I probably don't want it that large. Let's make it like 18, much shorter. I'll just type the state we want these things to be in. So you can kind of tell which animation we're in based off of this and exactly what we're going to kind of be using. Let's use that. Idle. Whoa, weird font. Turn you to Arial or something. Something I can work with. There we go. Idle. Idle, and it's semi-transparent. Probably in, well, we can leave it as semi-transparent. Maybe black. See how the semi-transparency kind of works. It's probably not really gonna work. There frame. It's not terrible. Well, unbelievably terrible. It is pretty bad, but that's not. It's not the animation, so I'll shift to 5. So we can kind of... Can we see through things? I don't even know. No, not really. Weird. I'm going to pull this down a little bit, so it's sitting right on top of my player. Cut it. Paste in place. Okay, yeah, it's sitting on top of my player. That's good. Didn't look like it because of the edges. And okay, so that's our idle state. We've got another thing for. Let me just change the color. What's that? 50% alpha? Really, it doesn't look like 50% alpha. Maybe these don't actually have alpha. Yeah, it doesn't look like it has an alpha value. Shouldn't be dynamic. Let's make it static. Yeah, now it's actually working. Perfect. Quickly as you want. I guess it doesn't like dynamic setting alpha values. That's fair enough. And filters and other things too if you want it to really pop. So like you have a filter of white around it. So, you know, maybe we'll just put a glow. So this could be a white filter. And transparency is going to be also 50. Just to create a nice set of contrast. And we want it to be like a really, really tight. So it's just like an outline. So like 2 pixels, maybe. And we just want to pull that up really high, like as high as you can. So we run it, and you can kind of see it anywhere. It just pops a little bit. It's not super important, but okay, that was just a lag frame. But anyway, so idle, great. So let's get the rest of our states out and running, and let's create the frame labels for them first. We can also blow this up a little bit so it looks a little larger. You can actually read them. And this could also be, they don't have to be so short, but this is 30 frames per second, so you want to calculate, okay, how much does an idle frame have to be, or how much does whatever have to be, and you can just extend these things out. That one extended out, that one extends out. If you hit F5, you click on hit F5, it kind of extends it out. And F6 will create a new frame, so F6, F6. So we're going to start giving these things frame labels. We can leave them all lowercase, doesn't really matter. What do I prefer? There really is no convention for state machine. Well, enums are probably closer to constant, so if you were considering making these like enums, then maybe all caps, but suffice to say, I don't think that's what we're going to be doing. What states do we have? We've got idle, move, jump, air up, air down, and attack. We might also even land. Let's put all those states, as many states as we can find. So, first state is we're going to call this walk. I think walk's better than move anyway. So, go into frame, type walk. And walk is just going to be 5 frames. And what you could even do is I'm going to show you like the advanced way to do this. So this is going to be like start walk. Let's do it like that. Which one should we use? So we could say that, let's say we have a start animation for our actual walk cycle that's like 3 frames. And I'm going to leave it to 5. So it looks like he's moving from a standing position. And that would be our start walk. And then what we're going to do over here is we're going to say um, it should theoretically run into a walk. So walk itself would probably be closer to 20 frames, depending on how much depth you want to add to it. So I'm going to say this one's called a walk state. Still don't know if I like that. I think I'm going to just put underscores, and it's probably easier to read. Start walk, walk. You know how they're kind of tied to each other? So this one's going to be 6. Start. Wrong frame. You can have multiple frame labels on a frame, but it's probably not a good idea. I don't know how it kind of resolves, but start. Jump. Make the start jump also 5 frames. And then, what else we got? I don't think I have enough room with this. Well, maybe I might. Might have to shrink it down a little bit. It's kind of a bummer. Yeah. Well, it's not too bad. It's still straight over, so maybe I'll leave it. Let's start jump. So we're going to have F6. This is going to be wrong thing. Here. Jump. Ascend. And this will play as long as you're going up in the air. Oops, wrong one. And you could also, so F6 is the one shortcut for creating keyframes, and you can just hit F6 wherever you want them, and it'll just create regular frames all the way to that point. We're also going to create one that's going to be, so walking is probably going to be our longest cycle. Start jump is going to be relatively short. Jump ascend is going to keep on repeating. What this one's going to do is going to be start, descend. I want to make this pretty complex because, oh, no, I had multiple frames selected. Start, descend, because you can really do advanced things with this. So, yeah, I'm just going to create a keyframe here. Put a keyframe here. Start, descend. Should really be called start, jump, descend. And usually these are relatively short, like they shouldn't be too long. So maybe I will rename this start. No, I'm not going to. It's going to be too long. So start, descend, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So, so this one's going to be jump, descend, and am I spelling descend wrong? No, that's fine. I think that's fine. Let me just Google that quickly. Wrong things. What was that? Yeah, I got it right. It's been one of those days. So, jump, ascend. F5. Yeah. Jump, descend. And then this last one's going to be land. Landing, and it doesn't have to be like a jump landing. Oh, man. These things. What different types do I have available to me? Okay. That's the first time I saw types over there, so let's just... type comment anchor. Oh, because it's alright, cool. I didn't know that. So if you have multiple things, it could just be a comment over those frames. Didn't know that. Or could I just... Oh, if you have multiple, yeah, okay. Then you can turn it into something else, because usually you probably don't want to have two frames with the same label. It may work. I don't know. I've never really thought about it. That's landing. Landing's usually shorter, so why don't we kill the extra 2 frames? Doesn't have to all be equal. Anyway, I just wanted these to be longer so I can actually see the text. Start jump could even be a little shorter. Let's shift to 5. I'll take that out. Do we have anything else? We can have an attack state, but attack states are usually a little weird. So I'm going to leave it. What you can do is maybe I'll show you how to, an attack state over. I'll see if I can show you the way that Punk did it with their gun. Yeah, actually I don't think they had an attack state, but they did do something with their gun. So I'm able to show you that. It's not too bad, but all of it's pretty self-explanatory. So actually I did make a mistake here. These should all be like Shift F5. Oops, not Shift F5. Everything except for the first frame should be Shift F5. And then make this all F5. Because the hitbox is never going to change. You don't want that to change. It'll be dangerous if your hitbox actually moved around. What we're going to do in here now is we're going to actually start jumping to and call these start walk, walk, start, jump, jump, ascend. Oh no! Make you just a little longer, yeah, okay. Oh, this is gonna be a pain now. Start. If ascend was bad, descend's gonna be terrible. Stretch it out a little bit on this side, and stretch it a little bit on that side. A little bit more, eh? So I was afraid of just work. Whatever. It really doesn't matter on their size, it's just, I don't know, I like things to look a little bit more uniform. Jump, descend, so half out here and half out here. There we go. And landing's not so bad, so landing, just the G goes over, pull you a little here, pull you a little here. There we go. So those are all the states we've theoretically gotten. They should work in conjunction, so maybe I'll make these capitals. Walk. Walk. Okay. Perfect. So these are theoretically all the states we want our player to kind of hit. You should be able to go, and we have to kind of consider the process let's just run through the train of thought. When we move from item, when we first hit our key, we should run to the walk state. Now the walk state should jump to the start walk. And then internally, it'll go from start walk to walk, and when it gets to the end of walk, it should jump back to walk again and continue leaping. Which is perfect. Now we do the same thing with start jump. Jump ascend is when you're going in the positive direction, so it loops to jump ascend, and jump ascend just keeps on going until you've reached your top. Then once you've reached your top, or it's predicted you're going to reach your top, then you can start the descend. Now jump descend is going to do the same thing, loop over itself, and then when you hit landing, landing's going to predict when you're about to hit and sort of allow for a fluid animation. Now there's two ways you could do it. One is just on the hit and leave enough room so it looks smooth, and the other way is actually predict it. I haven't really decided which one I'm going to show you. Predicting is actually a fair bit harder because you have to, you theoretically have to test how long the frame is and how fast you're moving. If you want to do it 100% right, and usually, faking it's just like, oh, just 30 pixels or something. I don't know, throwing in numbers. The math, you can do math to figure that out, to figure out when the perfect landing is. And if you're interested in it, you should definitely try figuring that out. I'm not interested in showing it, but if you want to, if you're interested in thinking through the steps, we can you can definitely feel free to always ask. So those are all our states. That's perfect. Now when we run it, of course, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to run through every single state. Go to player. And it just keeps on doing that, which isn't what we want. What we do want is I just thought of a fix for resizing. There was another way we could have fixed this. We could have fixed all the text by doing a edit multiple frames. My Outlook's just popping up over my thing so I can see. Yeah, that's edit multiple frames. You can drag this out. This is an animation kind of technique where you can drag this out and just edit all the frames together. You can kind of see them all together too, like as you progress through them. So we're just looking in the backward direction. And if we pull it forward, it kind of is like concatenating. It's like, how much do you want to actually see? So it tries to retain that semblance of information, and now we can just kind of, wherever we click, we'll see the entire thing, because we dragged it out to our max distance. But so what we can do here is we can select just the text. We can see all the boxes are kind of, each one varying to their own. So if we wanted to, all we could say is, well, they're all classic text, great. But we want to stretch them out so that they all have a width of 82. If 82 is the right. And theoretically, they should have. No, it didn't work. Maybe can I move them all together? 10. Well, it does move them. I don't want to move them though. I actually want to switch their width. 90. Oh, okay. It's stretching them all uniformly. So, yeah, it's kind of a bummer. I can't really do it now, which is kind of a bummer. We can do the other things like switching the size. So, like, let's make them all 16. I'm gonna calculate the difference, make everything 16 as opposed to, being unbelievably large. Or we just leave it as 18. And I don't think I actually selected all of them for some reason. Looks like, but they weren't all changing. So, suffice to say, there are methods you can kind of employ if you make that mistake. I don't know why I wasn't thinking about it. I just wasn't thinking about it. Here's the other thing. So when we get into here, we have to set our states. The state machine's kind of fun, and really it's not too bad. The logic is going to be the best part of this, where we kind of go back and forth and figure out where exactly we want to put them, but state machine isn't bad at all. And truthfully, what I'd probably do is I'd add the logic if many objects are going to have it, or all unit objects are going to have it. I'd make a base class unit, put it in the unit base class, such as like the same thing with health. I might show an advanced example with that kind of thing, and put it in the game object as well, instead of just putting it in player. But we're going to start with it in player. Really doesn't matter where you put this function. And a state machine works kind of like this. You say public function set state. All we got to do is we don't really care which state you're heading into, but what we do care is we're going to say this is our target. Target is a string. And so we're also going to evaluate our current state. So state means we also need a new variable. This one should probably be protected. Var underscore state. Probably one of the first times you actually see me use this. You generally use this. It depends on how you want to use this function. You can use properties to set our state, which is public setters and getter methods, but there is a reason I'm not going to show you that right now. It's just going to make the trip a little longer. We are eventually probably going to have to use Well, we don't have to make it put the underscore in. I like the underscores, truthfully, because it means when I look at your code or look at anybody's code, I know exactly what it's doing. But there is a reason why I'm not kind of including that, or showing you the other method, because yeah, it's just going to make things more complex. Doesn't really help anything. So what we want to do is just evaluate if our target state does not equal our current state. And state machines can get a little bit more complex than this. This is the simplest form. Usually there'd be more variables and stuff going on as well, but you know what? I don't really care. So here we go to our target state. There's a rule when you're trying to show stuff off. It's keep it stupid simple or simple stupid. And I'm gonna try doing that. That's what I generally try to do when I'm showing you guys stuff. So target does not equal state. So if it doesn't equal the state, that means it's a change of state, and then we want to go to and play that target state. But before we do that, we also want to change our state. So state is going to be equal to target. That should have been a $sign in front of that, but I don't care now. And I have to go to and play, and it can just kind of do its own logic. Now here's the trick, though. Can a state overwrite its own state? And what I mean by that is, like, let's say we're hitting idle and we get to the end of the loop and we want to play idle again. How do we do that? Because we already said that if our target state's not equal to our current state, then we can't really loop. And so I'm going to show you a couple of methods that'll get us into get this working right. And one of the things to keep in mind is right, and that's one of the conditions we have to hit. Right, so looping is one issue. And the other thing is, what if I don't ever want idle to overwrite walk, or you know that kind of thing? So we want to kind of have a precondition of what states can override other states. And you can also do it with bouts of logic. Like usually we do with bouts of logic. I'll see how far we get. So and then we'll extend it accordingly. So what we want to do is, the first thing is to test our idle state. So set state is going to be idle, and it's going to be based off of the exact frame script, because go to and play uses the frame script. And so I'm just using that for our state machine too. We don't really care what it's in. Now here's the fun part, though. We don't actually read our frame script. So if I say idle and idle goes to walk, or I say start walk and start walk goes to walk, it'll still think it's in the state of start walk. So I don't have to worry about that condition. I don't know if that makes sense right now, but I'll show it to you in a sec. So set state is idle, and we want it to loop to idle. So if we just run it now, it won't do anything. What we actually have to do is we have to go in and set a frame script on itself. And this also means we need a script layer. So I'm going to start naming these layers. It's going to be like script. One below it's going to be label. The one below it's going to be, this is going to be hitbox. Not that it really matters. It's going to be animations. Great. Now everything's kind of uniform, and the reason why we have to do it like this is because when we get to our idle state, what we want to do is we want to loop on idle. So hit F9 over. First we want to hit F6 to create a keyframe. F6 create a keyframe, and then we can put a line of code over here to tell it to loop on idle. So go to and play idle, and you can make little nuances to make it look different. I'm not an artist, so I'm not actually going to do any of that stuff. This is going to be a hard one to really tell that it's working, especially for the idle state, but you'll know it's working because it won't go to any of the other states. Now I could show you trying to call the set state function from inside of a frame script, and this is probably the only time you'll see me using frame scripts to actually do animation commands, because it's just so powerful and you can easily move them and know what's going on. It's always on the idle state. Now if that wasn't working right, it would have so theoretically, if we set this as a set state instead and try to oh yeah, we'll just set it state back to idle, it won't loop on it again. It'll just keep on going. sort of that bug I told you about. And the reason why, because if we allowed it to work every time we call the set state idle, it would be locked on the first frame. And I could even show, should I show that to you? Yeah, I will show it to you. So don't take my word for it. So what do I mean by that? So if we take out all these conditions and we're just like, yeah, just do everything except for the the if statement here, and we were to call set state, I'm going to put something right on the first frame here just so we can see it. I'm also going to turn off all these multi-frame editing because I can't see. And I'm just going to call this, put a 0 here. So, there we go. Come on, go to V. I'm going to cut this, and I'm actually going to create a new layer for it so I can show it to you properly without having to like break everything. So F7. Oh, it looks like there was a recording bug. Great. So that means I had to backtrack a little bit, waste quite a bit of time, but it's not too bad. So what we essentially want to do is over here, it's 0, and then when we get over here, it's blank. So this is just to test out whether like it's actually the fact that it's actually locked to that frame. So we run it, we can see that it's looping correctly. And if we were to take out the go to and play idle, you already know what that does. But here's the other thing. So if we didn't actually set this state, and we're like, oh, just run it, it'd be locked. Every frame we're trying to set the state, so we're going to and playing that state, which is the first frame, and we're locked on the first frame. So we never actually get to the go to and play. So we can't do that. And if we were to even try just setting this to a set state right over here, set state idle, which would still work because we're inside of the game object class, it would just keep on going because it's like, well, I'm already at that state. So we can't do either of those. So what we actually do is we just use built-in methods. Okay, you're still in the idle state. So go to and play. This is part of the idle state. Idle. Just go back and loop. Perfect. Now we got a perfect seamless loop. The other thing we want to do is so we get to the start walk to walk, and we'll run into the same kind of. I don't know if we run into the same kind of issue. Do we? Right. I think there was something we wanted to see, that it was looping right. The start walk, but essentially, what we want to do is we want to say, all right. So what do we want to do? We want to say set state to start walk. Start walk. Tangents. Trying to make it for last time. So here's the idle, and if I hit the key, it goes to start walk. Now it's locked on start walk. The question is why? It should go straight off of start walk. And the reason being is we've got set the state to idle. That's a new state. And then even though the last state we really were on was start walk, we set it again, and it's like, well, it's now idle because we set it up here to idle. Then we set it to start walk, and then so it's killing it. It's just going to go through all the states, and it's going to look like it's locked to a single frame. And I could show that to you that it's just locked to that start walk. It's not actually looping. You should already know that it's actually locked to the start walk, not actually looping. Other side notes: if you click on start walk and hit F9, it says go to and play idle. That's because you're editing this last keyframe here. So you want to hit a new F7 for a new keyframe, or F6 because they're all blank. F9 and say go. Actually, this isn't actually sorry, completely unrelated note. So how do we fix this? We fix this by saying, well, we only call the set state once. And where should it be? It should be at the bottom, right after we do all our movement stuff. We kind of resolve it, and we can say right up here a var $sign target no $sign target. I would like I'm gonna use it. I have to retype it. Why not? State. That's just a string, and it'll tell us which state we're heading into. So our default state we said was idle, so let's make it idle. So when we do it over here, we just want it to be, we're going to set our walk state to be equal to walk. And same kind of thing. Start walk, and then it doesn't matter which direction. Now this isn't really the way I'd like to do it. This isn't really as clean or nice, but we'll probably modify it and move these things around anyway, so it doesn't really matter what order we put it in. But this will fix that one little nuance that is a bug. That usually goes uncaught in a state machine. So it's perfectly working the way we want. Idle is looping. We go to start walk. Start walk just goes all the way through, and we already know why, because we actually need a loop right over here. So over here we're going to say F6, right at the last frame, F9, and go to and play walk. And just a little nuance, usually it doesn't matter if you have this last frame in an animation, because if you start, let's say, with the legs crossed and you end with the legs crossed, it'll be one frame before the legs cross. So it'll look like it's seamless. So it works out better anyway. That it's not the full animation scale, at least with this method. And that also means we can do really fancy things too. Like if you wanted to call the destroy function, like we were just calling functions straight off of. Well, I haven't shown you that yet, but I will show it to you. But you can actually do fancy things with it later, right? Any function we have inside of player can be accessed. So let's say we go to the end of a destroy animation or death animation. Actually, I don't have a death anim. Let me throw one in. That should be nice. So player hits 4 enemies and he dies or gets destroyed. We can show the process for that. So the last state is going to be a really long death anim. So F6 all the way, well, not all the way down, F6. And I don't really care about the top one, that's just for scripts. I'll make this a really long death anim. So it's like he takes forever to die. F5. Perfect. And so what is this one going to be? This one's going to be death. That's probably a good state to have. And that'll show fancy stuff. This one's going to be called death. And no harm done. That's brilliant. So, okay. Alright, just thinking ahead. So, the last thing we can kind of do is... This is looking great. The most important step for us to be in is the jump state. Which means we have to actually be jumping. I'm going to try talking up a little bit. It looks like my bar's a little low. So, here's the thing. We jump, when do we jump? We jump over here. But we're also considered jumping when our we haven't actually hit the floor. So we can do this one of two ways. The usual way I normally do this is I create a list of things that can be overridden. So start walk can't override jump. And so if I set it to jump over here and start walk up there, then start walk's jump's going to win out because the last state it was in was jump. And you know what? I think it's going to be less lines of code. So let's try that as well. So we could theoretically say, I want to be jumping here, but I don't want start walk to override me. And so that runs into another thing that we actually want to like a protect, change list. And you can do this. This is where it gets fancy, where you can do it in a number of different ways. It's going to be equal to null. And in our state, we can say either it's null, or so this is we're going to group this condition. So one of these two is true, as opposed to this and this evaluating, and then the or off on its own. So, or change list dot index of It searches for an item in a way using strict equality, returns the index of that position, so that's great. I don't think I really care either way. I don't know if it's going to work, but it's worth a shot. And we can just specify, it's going to be a list of strings, the states that you can theoretically override. And so we're going to say, or index of target, of current state is not in our change list, or I'm going to call this allow list. So these are the things that it can modify. Do I want to do it here? Let's make another function for it. We're going to call it, because we can't call the set state. Like theoretically, the way we're programming it here, we'd have to actually call the set state every frame. So because it's actually going to run the goto in play, we don't want to actually do it. We want to evaluate whether or not it works. So we're going to call this one eval state to actually calculate whether or not that's a state we can move into, and it also takes in a target. So this is what we want to head into. This is what we've kind of got going, and it returns the winning state, which is whichever one. You know, if it's ours, then it's ours. If it's not, then it's the other one. So we're gonna just say if I don't need the double. We don't need the double and. We don't need that other bracket. I think that's actually perfect. Right, that one's not gonna work either. And so this one has to be greater than index of returns of value of position of that item. It's not a very good description. And if we know anything from index of, at least from array, right here, if the value is not found, it'll return shift F4. So F1 would have given me more information. Oops, so I shouldn't have hit F1 like that. So end over here, F1, okay, because there was the dot, 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 yeah. So 0 based, if it's not found, value, it will return a value of -1. So if it's greater than -1, it's founded in that list. And if it's found our current state in the allow modify list, then state, then return state. Else return target. So in every other case, return the target. But here's the thing. This is actually a little interesting. If you actually consider these conditions, if I don't supply anything in my allow list, then it lets you change it every type. It's like global allow. So what we actually want to do is we want to evaluate that there is an allow list, and theoretically. So you can do it one of two ways if you want a global allow list. So like, yeah, this is going to override everything, no matter what. I don't really know which is going to work out better for us. We'll start programming it and see which one works out better. So I'm just going to say it's going to be allow list, so it's actually not null, and the allow list.state is greater than whatever, then return the state. Otherwise, just always assume that it's just the target wins out, which means it works essentially the same way. Over here, target state's equal to idle, and then our target state's going to be eval state. And this is going to be our target state. This is going to be our allow list. What can we modify? This guy can modify idle, just idle. That's it. So we can eval the state. And I still don't like it over here because we should just be testing our direction. So I'm going to actually start making it a little bit more modular. So down here where we're doing all the rest, all of our movements kind of like resolved and nothing else kind of happens. Yeah, right after the gravity stuff, we're gonna do all our state evaluation. Or we could do it before the gravity, depending on whether we're not. Depends on one of the conditions. It's the jump logic. So we're actually running a little behind, so maybe I can pick this up. But here we go. So target state is equal to eval state, and this is actually based off the x position. So if velocity dot x, if there's a velocity dot x, then I want to actually, or it's, you know, I don't know, is infinite friction, yeah. So if there's a velocity at x, then, you know, start walk and override the idle state. Now if there's a velocity dot y, we want to, that's when we want to actually enter the jump state. And it doesn't really matter which one, because I'll show you why. Eval, if it's greater than -1, or if it's less than 0, that's our one condition. We're going to probably just keep these all in like single line of statements. Target state's going to be equal to target state's going to be equal to start jump. So that's going to be start jump. And start jump's going to override idle, sure, because we may not actually be walking. And it can also override a start walk. So if we are walking, override that too. And we're going to say if we hit greater than 0, so we're heading down, then we want to head into the, that's the jump ascend, so this is start jump will lead into jump, and start descend is going to be descend. And start descend can even override a start jump. It cannot override a start walk, because theoretically that's a practical impossibility. No, it's not an impossibility. You could fall off the edge, so that's perfect. So you can, but the only way to get up is to actually, only way to get way to get up there is to hit the start jump. And truthfully, to be honest, if you have an air jump, so you haven't jumped and you're in the air, you can also recover from a descend. This is a nuance, but in the game you'll probably actually see it. Might actually see it with animations. Might look super cool. With my text, you may not notice it because it's 5 frames. Kind of a bummer, but you can extend it out and just take a look at it. Let's start descend, start ascend, and so you can recover from a descend. It doesn't really matter that because you can't really fall. You'll fall back into the descend state. So they kind of play with each other, ascend and descend. And I think that's pretty much it. So landing is a little interesting, but let's see if we get all these other states right. So start jump. So we go to jump ascend, and if we hit F7 on that, hit F9, and we just say go to and play jump ascend. And yep, so that's not the start jump. It'll just go to and loop itself. And then when we go to the start descend, what we want to do is we want to say we're starting to descend, and when we get to the actual jump descends, F7, F9, and it could just be a really short loop. Go to and play is that jump descend? Yeah, jump descend. jump, jump, descend. Perfect. And those are all the states we kind of need. It looks like we've done a lot. We have done a lot, so it doesn't really matter. But like the logic all kind of sits through. Now our walking is not working the way we want it to. So either our logic is horribly wrong, or I don't know, something's horribly wrong. So we have velocity x, and none of the other states are actually working. So that's also because oh, you can't force an idle state, right? Everything should theoretically go back to the idle state and then play again. We'll reconsider the logic in a sec, but eval state returns the string, and so it returns the it returns the current state if it's no. This is a block list, so thing in states that it cannot enter. It's gonna be a deny list. Oops. I don't know what I was thinking. I programmed it like a deny list. I was using it like a deny list. So start can override, idle. So this is the which means it just has to be less than 0. So it's less than 0, so we didn't find idle in there. Didn't find idle in our list, and idle is in that current state, then use our state. And if it did, then so this is just like an override list. Right, so you got it working now. So it goes from walk to start walk. I don't know what I was thinking. And jump, ascend to descend. We got all those in there. Even that transition, it's super fast though. Why can't I see that? There is a jump ascend and a jump descend. No, it's supposed to be start descend. Start descend. It's supposed to be start descend. Did I use start descend? Yeah, it's supposed to be start descend. How come I can't see that? The start descend so short that I just can't even see it. Start descend, jump descend. I should just look for start. So start walk, jump descend, start. Yeah, it's like a fraction of a second, so I can't see it, but yeah, even the start walk is super fast. So, but we got all those transitions in there and working. So we can do that. We can go up here. We can start our descent and then actually descend, jump descend. You can see that. That's actually kind of cool. So we can start our just walking, start our descend, and then actually descend. Doesn't matter the height. It all works the same. And then what you can do is when you land, you can also just say on our collision, and we actually do our math and has jumped is equal to false. So, it resets our jump. That's actually our land, right? So we say target state is equal to, and this one we can probably force set. We don't even have to do the evaluation. Set state is, don't have to even evaluate. Landing state. Yeah, that's actually a really cool one. Now, truthfully, I came up with a couple of this stuff on the fly, this other function. I was thinking about trying to show you eval states, and this one was one of those that just came up on the fly. I've actually never used that before to kind of stub it out. It's a really good method. No idea why I haven't. But that just, keep on learning new things and you just keep on thinking about it, like how to optimize your code, and you can do fancy fun things. Now here's the fun part with landing. Landing does its landing thing, and we can make it super long, so it's like you're crushing down F5, and so we can actually see it, because it's kind of a bummer you can't see half these states. Maybe I'll extend them all out a little bit too, so you can see them. And on this last one here, we can just say we can say go to and set state idle to idle. And to be fair, I actually probably want to reset the state every frame, because Oh, I think I am resetting the state every frame to idle. Yeah, every frame. If I'm not actually moving or doing any of these other things, it'll just it'll reset to idle. That's how it's currently programmed. Well, I was going to think about doing it another way. There's so many different ways to program, state machines and get all the functionality to kind of work. It's hilarious. Where's my land? Oh, I didn't actually. Did I program that in? Landing. No, don't kill it. I need you. I need you. Landing. How come there is no landing state? If velocity is greater than 0, it should hit landing. Where's my landing state? It should just work. Oh, it's because it's overriding with the idle. So we have to make sure that idle doesn't override landing. And this is why I don't normally program it this way, because target state is going to be equal to state. Start with our current state, and then what that essentially means is when we go back to we have to be able to get back to an idle. If we do this, like, we'll always be on walking or landing or something else. Frame label null not found on the scene. Frame label null. Where did that come from? Go to and play. Timeline. Oh, fudge. I probably did something weird. F9. No. I don't know. I'll look at that in a sec. There's just another logic layer as well. So I just realized it when I saw landing pop up. It's because we have to make sure that has jumped is false, because we don't want to land multiple times. So if has jumped is true, then set the state to landing. Otherwise, because we could theoretically, every frame, if we're just standing on the ground, it'll keep on trying to play the landing state. So we start up, it starts an idle. We move, it's all idle. It's always idle. Why is it always idle? And idle's just looping to idle. I don't know why it's always idle. Because state starts as idle, but we're supposed to be able to override idle, which is kind of weird. Come on! No, I want different results. Landing. Well, ascent, descent. Now we can't actually get back to. We can't actually get back to idle. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Let's just run the. Let's just run this out of logic. Who is calling the idle? I want to know. Find it. Who called it? Go to and play. Go to and play. Maybe go to and play. Who called it? Player update. Set state target state is equal to null. Oh, it can't override a null. Ooh, that makes sense. That makes sense big time. So, over here we want to make sure we actually have a set state. We actually start in idle. Oh no, what did I do? Programming in Flash. The Flash player. Bad. Super bad. Get out of here. Did you update? No, it didn't. That's even worse. That's even worse. Why didn't you update? What did I break? This should be equal to idle by default. So that's the one we start in, because we can't have a null state. That's kind of a bummer. And now we're just in the jump descent. It's completely broken. It never goes back to idle. Why? Because everything kind of has to go back to idle. And we're also running into this really fun borderline case. But this is programming. So it doesn't go to and stop. We're gonna set state back to. Every one of these is gonna be back to idle. Now, if it runs through our conditions and see that, oh, we're still falling or we're still doing something else, no, we can't do that either. For walking, we can set our state back to. So the question is, what is idle override? That's actually a good one. Idle shall override start walk, and it should override. It can't override jump descend. Well, that shouldn't be important anyway. Because if we do it before the, say, greater than 0, before the gravity gets applied, it gets set back to 0 somewhere. 0 on collision. So it shouldn't be too bad. But what we kind of do is we do want an idle state. So we're going to say eval state idle. How do we get from idle? How do we get into an idle? Well, we can get into an idle from our start walk state. String unrelated array. Oh, yeah. I gotta stop making changes here. No, don't make the changes here. It's not saying across. Where am I making these changes? Where are these files located? This is on my desktop. Okay, great. Going crazy for a second. One time. So it's still jump descend. Why are you on jump descend? It shouldn't be on jump descend. I don't even know when it enters that state. So if it's less than 0, what's our velocity equals right off the bat? There is no velocity. So why don't we just trace velocity? This is ridiculous. Trace velocity to make sure it's not doing something weird. And that's turning out to be a 0, 0. And I'm in jump descend. Was it ever? I guess I must have I fell the first couple frames. And so when you fall the first couple frames and you actually land, then you want to actually go back to the landing state. Landing state will fire. It should have fired. And when you get to the landing state should go back to the set state idle. Yes. So is our landing state firing? That's our question. And by the looks of it, I'd say no. So we can go into our landing state if our, let's just base it off our velocity instead of has jumped. So if our velocity is greater than 1, then go into the landing state. So it's more than gravity. But it never seems to hit. Why is that? Landing's where we want to be. Let's do a trace. We'll throw a trace in there. Maybe my code isn't being modified. Something like weird happened. Oh, maybe it's not modifying right. Sometimes you have to save to make sure the changes get. Nah, it's not. So trace landing. Let's just make sure it's even running. It should be. If it's greater than 0. If it's greater than 0, but velocity isn't greater than 0, so. It is 0. Stop, let's take a look at that trace statement. Goes to landing. Oh, does it? Yeah, I got it now. So we want to set our animation state and then do move by, because it's doing the move by, setting the state, and then it's overriding it with a target state. because the directions are flipped. So this is landing. We go back to idle. So if we land, we go back to idle. Then we go to walk. Well, from walk we can go to jump, ascend, and then we go back to idle, walk. We can also fall, jump, descend. So that's jump, start, jump, descend, and then you jump in the air and you can land back where you left off. So you can do a whole bunch of these combo states. Nuances with these state machines. I'll tell you, they can be fun. They're a little interesting. Usually they're a little interesting, but that took a ton of our time. So I'm sorry for those little nuances. I should really prepare what I'm going to show you before I actually get to showing it to you. But this, I think, is a lot more fun. You get to see the process I go through when I'm trying to evaluate whether or not something will work. So that's our start, ascend, descend. That's our landing state. That was perfect. Absolutely brilliant. I like it. So we land. We can actually see it because we run at a slow enough frame rate. We can even start, descend, and then jump, start, ascend. So jump of the year. It all looks fluid. The only other thing that we really want to do is we want to do some other like fancy little things. So and it's actually probably better to put a deny list to things that oh no, it is an allow list. I don't know what I was thinking. Allow list. Things you're allowed to change. I just didn't program it like an allow list. I programmed it like a deny list. Things you're allowed to change, as opposed to things that you don't want to change. So you know exactly what you are changing or have the ability to change. You can kind of go in there and take a look at that. Now here's the last state. The last state is actually the death state. I think we got all the states in. I'm actually well impressed. It didn't take us too long. Probably little nuances and bug finding here or there, but like for the most part, who cares? That was pretty good. I'm happy with like an hour tutorial. Might be a little bit over an hour. Well, maybe it's an hour. Who knows? We'll find out. So F7. And so the last kind of thing is, you might have seen me actually call a set state function. How can I do this? This doesn't make any sense. And the reason is, if we're inside of a player, we actually have control of all the player class. Why? Because any code in here, and this is probably the only time I'm going to get into this nuance, is actually put into your code for you. It's automatically generated. What they do, Flash does, is it'll call right in your constructor. You have no idea where, probably at the end. It'll just put a add frame script. Add frame script takes in let's see if it actually has a description. No, it doesn't have a description. It's an undocumented function. The reason why Flash doesn't document it is because they use it internally and they don't really want you using it, but it's public, so you can use it. What it does is it takes in a function. You set the frame you want it to play on, and I think the function you want to call. So like, no frame. They usually call it something like frame _1, and if you actually like use that as a function name and you have a frame script, it'll blow up. It'll be like, can't generate a script named frame _1, trying to ready generate it. Yeah, something like that. Do I have anything on one? What frame do I have it on? I have something on, what frame is that on? Frame 5? So let's say like frame 5, just for the fun of it. I don't know if it's gonna work. And this is gonna be a frame label. You're like, nah, alright, fair enough. You don't know what it is. I don't know if I even got the format right, because I haven't done this in a long time. And usually you never really want to do this kind of thing. So public function frame _5 void. Something like that. So if we try running it, no, just let me get away with it. Maybe it's like capital frame. There we go. Nice. What a guess. Access of undefined property. Oh, no, sorry. Nuance. Well, I don't know if I can find it. They name it something like this, so it's like frame script, frame something 5. And if you actually get the name right, it'll blow up. I don't think I'm getting the parameters right anyway, but That's just a nuance. So it actually does this in your code, and that's why it works. It's like it's actually appending it into your player class. It works, exists within the player class. So you can access any, in a function like that, you can access any part of your code. So if you know that that's the way it's operating, you can just go in and say, hey, by the way, call a set idle state. And when it compiles and puts it in your code, it's like, oh yeah, there's a set idle state inside of your player. Sure. So even when it's generating those functions dynamically. Now, this is why it's a little bit easier, because you don't want to have to generate, oh yeah, and on fave 20 frame, 20 and frame 29 and frame whatever. You don't want to have to specify that in code. That's just a pain in the butt. You usually want to create a state machine. So having it work kind of like this, and you can do fancy things like even make XML if you're exporting it for mobile devices or whatnot. And so what you can even do here is you can just say, well, after my death animation, call destroy. And this is super powerful, because now you don't have to like worry about it. You're like, yeah, nothing can override destroy. Once we call destroy, it's or death. It's done. It's like it'll play its death animation and kill itself. What could be more beautiful than that? And this is like people spend hours trying to figure like, how do I get it to destroy after the frame is played? And there are like really, really hard ways to do it. This is like the simplest way, the fewest lines of code. All you got to do is, if I hit, and this is built off of, it isn't built off of the HUD. I was thinking it was built off the HUD example. So it's not. I was originally planning on building it off the HUD example. But if we run into an enemy and we get destroyed, don't call the destroy. Just say set state. What's our state? We don't even have to do that. We could just say target state is equal to, because nothing can override it. I don't have to do the eval. It's equal to death. It overrides all. That's just like nothing trumps death. And so we don't call the destroy. We don't have to bother calling it. And we run it, and we run into an enemy. It'll play our death animation, and then we die. Whole game restarts. It was brilliant. For enemies, you can do the exact same thing. They run into their death animation, and then the whole world, and then they fall down dead, and they just stay there. Whatever you want to do with them after that. And probably not stay there, but they'll remove. If it's tied to the destroy function. And if you don't want to tie it to the destroy function, you just want them to stay there. I mean, you usually do want to tie it with the destroy function. But what you can do is you can actually spawn that final state, that final frame, as a separate movie clip that just stays on the stage. It's sort of like a, something that stays behind. And that would all work as a nuance. I hope you guys can hear me. I hope it's loud enough. I'm not really sure if it is. Sorry. That was just random. I did mention that I might show the doing multi-state thing, but essentially how they did it is, if you can think about two pieces, you've got all your states working normally, and then the arm just moves all on its own based off of where your mouse is. So you'd theoretically have a target position. You can rotate it around your circle, and I could show you the graphic, the code to kind of get it right, but the logic is the most important part. You just want to have the arm always trained on the mouse to where you're aiming, and all the other states just work the way that they should still work. And you want to handle edge cases like, oh, what if I'm pointing this way? How far can I actually reach? You can all do that just internally, just for that mouse code that you'll need. For the arm, that's all, the one with the gun, and everything else kind of just falls into play. You'll still have your jump state and land state, and it'll look fluid. It'll look brilliant. It looks brilliant. Like, oh my goodness, programmer art. Yeah, I was actually considering trying to make some sort of semblance of art. I'm glad I decided not to, because I am a terrible artist, and all we really need is the text to kind of convey how this thing works. You can stop it, slow it down, play it. I think that covers everything I want to show you. I was planning on showing you firing, but I mean firing, like you can see, it doesn't interrupt firing. All you really want to do is you want to separate a clip that does its own thing. That's just pointing in the right direction, and you can do your firing whenever you want. I can't fall through these. Not too bad. I might create another advanced tutorial, which is like advanced environments. I apologize ahead of time for not being able to. I don't think I'm gonna have time. I'm not gonna have time to do it until I come back. So good luck using these tutorials. I hope this was sufficient, and I, as far as I can tell, they cover like everything you'll probably ever need. So this one is probably, the animator's favorite. They're like, please make our animations work. And you're like, yeah, it's going to take me 5 days. And boom, you just push out this code. And it works within a single afternoon. It's actually kind of powerful. And this is also, gets extended into your engine. So if I had my wish and, you were using this everywhere, just put it in the game object class. Objects that might have multiple states. Maybe the coin has different states, or you want to play into different states. You can put it in the game object class. It won't do anything fancy. It won't break anything. And there's no reason really not to. I just didn't want to be jumping between classes, so I just put it here. But every object could inherit that. I don't have time to actually show you enemies doing that too, but the theory and all the practical implementation is the same. So good luck, and I think that's going to be the end of this tutorial.